Hello, everyone. It's me, Ari Dosset Rashid. I'm your anthropologist and sociologist. If you're Italian, call me Emiliano, perfectly fine, no problem. Please, everyone, hit the like button, share this live stream, subscribe to the channel, become a member of the channel, donate the links below, check the fees and instructions below if you want to book a one-on-one consultation. Thank you very much. You can check my novels on Amazon, Barnes& Noble, wherever you can find them. And above all, I want you to pay close attention to this live stream, take notes, pray about it afterwards, and where this knowledge applies in your life, apply this knowledge to glorify Heavenly Father. Thank you. Now, before I continue, how are you all doing today? How are you all doing today? Let me know, please. No, this live stream is 2 hours earlier than I usually do. I was in prayer. I felt that I felt pressured on my heart by Heavenly Father to address this topic, knowing I'm going to open a can of worms now. But anyway, this topic needs to be addressed. But okay. When you hear about predators, first of all, in nature, you have predatory animals like wolves, lions, tigers, or snakes. These are animals that tend to hunt on other animals. The thing is, though, in nature, predatory animals only hunt when they're hungry. When a lion is hungry, he may hunt a gazelle or a deer or whatever. Here's the thing though, once the lion has eaten the animal and the lion is full on the inside, the lion is not hunting anymore. Same with wolves. Wolves hang around in packs, by the way. And when wolves are hungry in packs, they go after sheep, goat, or whatever is available. Once the wolves catch their prey and eat it, that's it. They don't keep hunting. In nature, animals only hunt one another out of pure biological survival when they need to eat. Now, so when I talk about predators, I'm not talking about animals and how it goes on among animals right now. I'm talking about us human beings. When you hear, one moment, y'all, just one moment. When you hear about we hear the word predator. You may think about child molesters or serial killers or people do romance scams online, and you're kind of correct about that. What I'm about to do in this live stream is I'm about to explain to you from an anthropological point of view what a human predator is, how they operate in a community, and how to recognize when there's a dangerous environment. Because understand this, human predators are similar to animal predators in one sense. They only operate in their own habitat. One moment. They only operate, they don't go outside of their quote unquote comfort zone. Understand this. A predator, a human predator cannot operate outside the comfort zone. You may have to take notes about this. A human predator cannot operate outside of their comfort zone. Now, what is a comfort zone? As a human being, you grow up in an environment, the things you get used to. If you grew up in Greenland or in Norway, you may be more used to cold weather. Or if you grew up in Aruba or in Indonesia or Costa Rica, you're more used to warm weather. Someone that grew up in Costa Rica near the jungle, they know how to deal. They may know how to deal with what animals a bit better than someone that grew up in, let's say, Tokyo, because there's not a rainforest nearby over there. There are wild animals in Japan, don't get me wrong, but someone that was born in Tokyo may be more used to the city landscape. So someone from Tokyo, let's say if a guy called Taro from Tokyo, Taro as a man is more comfortable with the city landscape. So you can put him in Mexico City, Buenos Aires, or Johannesburg, in South Africa, wherever you put him on Earth, because he is so familiar with urban environments, he knows how to navigate around it. Pick this guy Taro and put him in a rural village somewhere in Guatemala or in a small hamlet in Britain, surrounded by forests. He'll get a bit uncomfortable. Not because not because the location is automatically dangerous, but because he's not used to operating there. He doesn't have the skills. So now he needs to rely on a guide or he needs to develop his skills. So his comfort zone Taro's comfort zone was the urban landscape. If you have a woman, for example, called Lisa, she grew up in Costa Rica in a rural village near a rainforest. Guess what? She is more comfortable around animals to begin with because she grew up on a farm near a rainforest. So she may even encounter wild animals in her life. So she is more adapted to that environment. You can put her anywhere on earth in a similar environment and she can thrive because she's operating in her comfort zone. Put her in a city landscape like Seoul or Beijing, whatever, and she can get a bit disoriented. So as a human being, there's nothing wrong with it. You have what you call the comfort zone. That is what you tend to operate the best in because you're familiar with it. The comfort zone doesn't have to be a living space like a city or a village. It can also be a field. Maybe you study law, and when it comes to legal matters, man, you all in on it. When it comes to art, you know what to do with art. It doesn't mean that art is and there's something wrong with art, but that's not your field. Let's say you're an artist, and one day someone comes to talk about chemistry. Now you know a little bit about chemistry when it comes to paint and putting it on the canvas, but man, you get so confused about all this chemistry, all those chemicals. Why? Because that's not your comfort zone. You're not familiar with chemistry. I'm an anthropologist and sociologist with deep historical knowledge, and I love doing research also into history and how things work out today. So that is my quote unquote academic comfort zone. I can address psychological topics by reading into it, but I'm not doing that because I'm not trained as a psychologist. I'm an anthropologist and a sociologist. And I'm also trained in governance. I deal with international relations. Those are the fields, multiple, I'm the most confident in functioning. So that is also where I function the best in. When people tell you to leave your comfort zone, they're talking to people who are trapped in anxiety. If you're trapped in anxiety, because you hold on to restrictions that don't add up. Those restrictions are suffocating your life. But you can still have mental comfort with the restriction, even though the restriction is harming you. So when people tell you to leave your comfort zone, what they're saying is, if you have anything in your life you're holding on to that doesn't work well for you, let it go. That's what they mean. Truth being told, every human being has a comfort zone. You have to leave your comfort zone to develop and increase. Absolutely. But it doesn't mean that your comfort zone by itself is a dangerous place to be. Your comfort zone is where you function the best. Now, if you're a drug addict and your comfort zone became the ghetto, where everyone is doing drugs, well, guess what? You have to leave that comfort zone. That comfort zone is dangerous. You have to get a new comfort zone. Or what if you grew up in a rural village somewhere in South America, and now you're going to London to study, or better, you go to Cambridge in UK to study. You have to outgrow the rural life on the farm to adapt to the city life to get your degree. So getting out of your comfort zone is when you're developing and increasing. In this case, your comfort zone is increasing. If you grew up in a rural village somewhere in South America and now you go to a big city elsewhere in other continents to study, you are increasing your comfort zone. So you get out of your original comfort zone and now you get used to something more. So understand this, your comfort zone in itself is not a bad place to be. As a matter of fact, you should operate in your comfort zone unless your comfort zone is compromising your well-being and God's will for your life. All right? Now, when it comes to human predators, let me explain the following to you. A human predator is a human being, can be a male or female. Yes, there are female predators too. If you can't handle that, stop watching this live stream because I'm not going to cater to your gender delusions over here. Yes, there are female predators out there. They do exist. But anyway, a human predator is a dysfunctional, damaged human being that refuses to admit the operating lack. But Rashid, doesn't everyone to some extent have difficulty admitting issues about themselves? Doesn't everyone have issues with self-reflection to some extent? No, I'm not talking about that. There's a difference between you being avoidant to look at yourself and someone refusing with a militant attitude no one want to look within. And that's a difference. A common individual that lacks self-awareness, they may run away when someone shows them a mirror of where they need to work on themselves. It can be quite uncomfortable, especially if they're confronted in an unfriendly way. Nobody should confront you in an unfriendly way to begin with, unless it's tough love and they really want to build you up. But anyway, it happens a lot. I had it too. You had it too. That's different from someone who made up their mind that no matter what, I will not look within, I will not face this. And anyone tells to face it, I'll attack them. That's what I mean. The human predator is a mentally emotional it's a mental and emotional train wreck that absolutely refuses to face the fact they are a train wreck. And because of that, they develop this hard, militant motivation to compensate for the lack they're denying. Is this clear to you all until now? Let me know in the live chat. A human predator is a dysfunctional and damaged human being. So they are an mental and emotional train wreck that refuses militantly to look within. So they have lack and they operate out of lack, but they deny that they're operating out of lack. The lack is denied. For example, you may have someone called Robert who grew up in a household where both parents were loving, but parents were emotionally slow. So Robert now at home, The parents were loving and overwhelming towards him. But Sado, when he went to school, people were quite harsh, calling him a mommy's boy and all that. So he had his parents did not intentionally harm him, but because his parents themselves were emotionally damaged and emotions functional, they couldn't bring forth an emotionally stable child. They couldn't. So, and at school, late also in college, Robert was quite anxious in social interaction because of it. So Robert never developed emotional stamina as a man, which is required to operate in your masculinity as a man. So Robert now lacked um, masculine qualities that he should have as a man. Now, if Robert admits yes lack, he's not a predator. Why? Because he has no militant attitude to compensate. He is compensating though by looking for a group of friends that enable his escapes, or where the escape is is a gaming addiction, a drug addiction, porn addiction, or he is a party animal, partying all the time. Whatever compensation he's into, he will look for people to enable it. So he is compensating, but it's not militantly compensating. If one day someone calls him and say, "Yo, Robert, why you party all the time, man? You're grown men. I can't just party like that." Or someone tells him, "Yo, why are you a smoke like that, man?" He'll get upset, realize you know what, you're right. Even though it's painful, he will admit it. But let's say now Robert, at some point, maybe at age 19 or 21, somewhere he decided, I do not want to deal with this. Remember, it's not his fault his parents were emotionally incompetent. It's not his fault that his relatives and the people around him never intervened when he was growing up. None of that is his fault. Nevertheless, he's still damaged because of it. So he needs to own up that he's been damaged, and he needs to go into therapy, counsel, whatever is necessary for him to improve and be healthy as a man. That is his responsibility, because it's the only thing he can do. He can't change the past. Nobody can change the past. He needs to accept the situation what it is and work with it right now. But let's say Robert decided, no, I don't want to deal with this. I never asked for this. Leave me alone, or whatever. The thing is, he's still damaged. So now he has lack on the inside that he doesn't want to own up to, but he still wants to function. So what he now begins to do is he begins to look around who who is more vulnerable than him, or who has more lack than him on the inside, to feed off of those people's insecurities. He now will misuse his leverage over other people to quote unquote control other people to make up for the lack that he doesn't want to own up on the inside. That is a predator right over there. That's a predator. Let's say Robert decided age 19, I don't deal with anything. He was militant about it. And let's say age 21, he made an account on a dating app, and he began to scam a lot of women that he was dating. But he did it in such a way that, and then the police came, the police had to let him go because, hey, the women consented to whatever. He builds up a reputation as a romance scammer, blah, blah, blah. One day he gets married, and the wife he married to is a woman that's a bit mentally off also, but she's not a bad woman. But the thing is, he chose her because she's a bit mentally off. There were other women around that were more healthier than his current wife, but he had wanted not to do with them. Why? Because those healthy women would eventually flag back onto him that he's not healthy as a man. Those healthy female options he had around him would force him to look within and actually become better as a man. He didn't want that. So he had a girlfriend that he dumped because the girlfriend kept pressuring him to be better. So he chose a woman that didn't notice his defects, and he could always fake like he's the man with her. And that's how it goes on and on and on. And before you know it, one day, Rob is arrested for molesting a minor. So it went from bad to worse. And that's what happens with predators. Predators, They go from bad to worse unless they're kept in check by the population. Because remember, a predator is a damaged and dysfunctional human being, so they are the mental emotional train wreck that refuses militantly to look within. And so that because of this, they're always under survival stress. A predator is under survival stress continuously. Why? Because that image that they want to portray of themselves, they know that the image is not true. Where the image is that they are a super confident businessman, or a woman may portray herself to be a strong, independent woman with strong values, or she may claim to be a conservative woman that's godly, whatever, or she may claim that she's a wild, free woman. Whatever image it is that they portray on the outside by themselves, they know that is fake. They know it. They want you, the outsiders, to believe that the image they portray of themselves is real. So this false self, as it's called psychology, is what the predator is putting out there. And this false self is a performance they're doing in their life, publicly. Behind the scenes, in quote unquote private, they now don't do that. But outwardly, on social media, also when they're at work, physically, or they go out there, they portray an image in their behavior. And they want you, the outsider, to believe that image. Why? Because they themselves don't believe it. So if you believe the image they portray, they experience relaxation and feel relief on the inside. However, at the same time, they're going to be shocked that you fell for it because they themselves don't even believe it. So if they don't believe the propaganda they put out about themselves, but you fall for it, they're going to be disappointed in the long run in you, and then they're going to look down on you because they're so disappointed in you that you fell for it. If you don't fall for it, they feel threatened by you, and now they're going to resist you, attack you, or run away from you. So whether or not you fall for their false self or not, they're not going to treat you well. They're not. The predator, the human predator, is looking for someone that is either defenseless against their aggression, or someone that they have blackmail on, and therefore is not likely to go against their escape. That's how a predator operates. Is this clear to you all? Let me know in the live chat, please. Let me know. Is this clear? God is good. So get this. A human predator is always looking for vulnerabilities, injuries, and liabilities in other people that they can exploit. That's the main thing to do after they wake up, is look who has liabilities, who has a liability can be youth trauma, it could be an addiction, it could be a vice, whatever it is. They're looking for liabilities, vulnerabilities, and injuries in other people that they can exploit. And they will present themselves as loving, charming, Christ-like believers, whatever. They'll put out on front in their behavior to convince the victim, the targeting, that they really are this great individual. And you may ask yourself, how come these predators often succeed? It's quite simple. Predators can only succeed getting victims if the public allows them to. A human predator in a healthy community will lose his mind or her mind, they will lose their mind, collapse, end up in a mental asylum, or they end up taking their own life, or they end up, having to be brought to the hospital, whatever. Because, listen, without them being able to relieve this survival stress, they fall apart. And they may even turn on themselves and harm themselves. So, in their mind, as a predator, it's survival to find a victim. So, a human predator, will never go to a healthy, functioning community, ever. No human predator will ever want to be even close to healthy, stable people. Forget about it. Because they cannot operate in such an environment. So, the human predator, again, they wake up in the morning, they look around in their environment, or look around with other people, they look for injuries, vulnerabilities, and liabilities in others they can exploit. And the moment they see a liability in someone, they first look at the context. For example, let's say you have a woman that's a gold digger. She just wanna take advantage of men sexually and then use false charge against them to get cash out of them or they sex towards them. She will look around to see which men around have liabilities, injuries, or vulnerabilities can exploit. Now, if she finds a man that is has an unhappy marriage, that unhappy marriage that the man is in is a liability she can exploit by being the other option they can cheat with. Or it could be that a man lacks inner confidence because he was never really treated that well in his environment. This wounded man, this scapegoat, that's a big liability he has that he was so victimized so often. She can take advantage of that. When the female human predator sees a man that she can exploit, she first checks, okay, does he have supportive parents around him? Does he have supportive friends? Does he have a support group that actually looks after him? If she sees you have a support group that looks after you, uh, bye, she's gone. If she sees that you lack proper human support, she'll get a bit closer to check to see the coast is clear. Some of these female human predators will even go to fortune tellers to consult evil spirits about your situation. Once the once the human female predator has found a male victim that has enough liabilities, vulnerabilities, or injuries you can take advantage of, and that male victim, that male target, better said, lacks proper community support, she'll make her move. She'll either act like a damsel in distress needing the man's help, or she'll act like she act like um, a succubus seduce the man sexually. Or she'll pretend to be a conservative woman that's a believer that looks for other believers to fellowship with. She'll do her research investigation to see what role she can take on to get the attention and to win over the trust of the male victim. If it all succeeds, she now begins to feed off of the victim. At some point, the victim is going to collapse by the abuse, so she's already looking for the next target. Now, the only reason she went ahead with the man she was targeting is because the man lacked community support. That's why. If the man had proper community support, she wouldn't even have done it. Let's go to a male human predator. There were child molesters that they've interviewed after they're being caught and convicted, of course. And they even admitted before they would approach a child they wanted to molest, they would check whether there was a father around. If there was no father around, or the father that was around was neglectful, or if the environment in general was neglectful for the child, they would make a move on that child because they knew that if they succeeded molesting the child, eventually the community is to blame for being neglectful, and nobody wants to blame for neglectful, so they know that eventually they may count on blackmailing the people and getting away with it. So understand this. Whether it's a female or male human predator, they are always looking for a neglected and wasted environment to feed off. So anytime a human predator does a hit somewhere, the community is to blame for allowing this opportunity to even exist. And a lot of people don't want to go there. Have you noticed anytime there's a manhunt for a serial killer or someone got killed and now they're looking for the bad guy? Have you noticed there's always this obsession with the suspect. They tend to deify the suspect like some type of supernatural or paranormal deity. Let me tell you why people are doing this. Anytime a human predator does a hit, where the victim died or not is irrelevant. Anytime predator takes a hit, the community has to explain how could this have happened? Where were we? Why do we allow this? Why do we maintain a bad environment for our community members? They have to own up to they're not that trustworthy. They're not that reliable. And there's no community that wants to own up to this because that would mean they will lose privilege, leverage, and even financial advantage. Because nobody wants to be financially involved with people who are neglectful and people who are not trustworthy. So that's why people tend to obsess themselves with either the rapist, the killer, or the fraudster, whatever type of predation the predator did, they're going to be so obsessed with the predator. That's why people are so fascinated and obsessed with serial killers. Why? Because it's easy to be obsessed with the predator than wonder yourself, how can this predator get away with this? And another thing you need to understand, predators decide at some point in their life they don't want to own up to anything in a militant way. You have human beings that are stubborn. But even stubborn human beings eventually crash realize, you know what, I need to own up to stuff. Well, what am I doing? This is so dangerous. The predator has vowed, they make a vow that they will not look within no matter what, and they're going to insist on this image no matter of themselves, no matter what, y'all. So the human predator is inferior. And to cover up inferiority, they want to take advantage of people who actually have quality. All right. In nature, when animals hunt, they tend to go for the best prey. I mean, that's what you see in nature. But human predators, when they're taking advantage of their fellow human beings, they're going to look for damaged human beings to some extent because they don't want they don't want their victims to be completely destroyed like they are. No, they want they want their victims to have some quality in them so they can feed off of it, but they don't want it to be fully healthy because fully healthy people, you can't victimize them that easily. Fully healthy people have a support system around them that works well, so you can't get close to there. Look, human predators are found in all layers of society, amongst rich people, amongst poor people, middle class people. Listen, they're found everywhere. The question is, why did this predator had opportunity to do this? And one thing you to understand, even though the predator is someone who insisted on not looking within, it's not all on them they end up that way. Listen, a lot of people have childhood trauma. Not everyone becomes a human predator. Some people just cope with it lifelong in dysfunctional ways. Others look for healing. But just because you have childhood trauma doesn't mean you become a predator. However, the childhood trauma often motivates people to become predators. It's still there. And we still need to admit, even though they at some point made the decision to become, to decline like that, we can't put all the blame on them. So the predator is a result of community neglect also. Nobody wants to talk about where all the serial killers come from. Nobody wants to talk about where all these child molesters come from. Nobody wants to talk about where all these sneaky politicians come from who harm the people and harm and lie to the people. Where they come from? They're all born as children at some point. What happened? The thing is, in the world, people want to take credit for good outcomes and they want to shy away from bad outcomes and act like the bad outcomes have nothing to do with them. It does no, that's not real. You're just as well accountable for both the good and the bad outcomes as a people. But look for a community that owns up to the bad outcomes. And tell me if you found one. It's quite hard to find a community anywhere on the earth that takes accountability for the bad outcomes to bring forth. It's a norm in the world that people cover up or hide or even deny bad outcomes they bring forth, and then they put high emphasis on the good outcomes that they claim they can afford from them. Look, I'm just keeping it real with you over here. There will be human predators harming people, including that means that includes children, elderly, whatever. You will have it happen when Christ comes back. Okay? Every community on earth is at risk of having human predators around. The difference is in some communities, predators cannot thrive in their predation. In other communities, they have free reign. The difference is one community uh, takes their natural obligation seriously, and the other community is wasteful. So understand this: you cannot arrest every human predator and put them in prison because a lot of human predators never had opportunity yet to act out their predation, so they're dormant. And you don't have that much prison space to begin with because listen, everyone you put in prison cannot be active in the community economically. If someone's a plumber and they go to prison, you have one plumber less. So you now if you have too many plumbers going to prison, you have a big problem now. Someone that goes to prison, they're a nurse or a medical doctor. Now the medical profession has an issue now. So just arresting all human predators is not going to happen. How do you identify them and locate them legally? So what we need to learn is to do our part so our communities are healthy and stable so that human predators have zero chance of succeeding in their victimization. Now, this was about human predators. And I already explained to you, human predators, they need a dangerous environment to operate in. Here's where it gets dark. Human predators are not seen as a problem by society until their predation makes the people look bad. Someone can be a full-blown molesting monster, harming both children and adults. But they're never caught, never arrested. Why? Because the victims that they've harmed were people that the public looked down upon. And because the people there got narcissistic supply out of the victims being harmed, people didn't want to. So actually, the human predator, where he's a narcissist, sociopath, psychopath, is actually fulfilling the dark vices of the public. So the human predators were damaging people, so they were victimizing people, and the people were victimizing him so dysfunctional that others looked down upon them if they lived by themselves. So because these human predators were contributing to the public relief, the public let them go. The public didn't like them. The public they didn't trust them, but the public left them alone. The victims that called it out, or the victims of malfunction, man, they went hard against them. Leave us alone. We were not responsible for your childhood trauma. You're a grown man now. Look for help. Support other people. Man, society goes very hard at the survivors, extremely hard. But what about the actual predators? Here's the dark truth. Well, here's the ugly truth. The predators are aware that the public wants victims looked down upon. But the predators know most people out there are not like them, so militant to go out there and take advantage of people. That's why the predator knows if they do the dirty job for the public and they damage specific people, so the public look down upon them, the public is going to be secretly thankful towards them, and the public behind the scenes is going to cover for them. Predators know this. And that's how they operate, y'all. The predators know that the surviving victims will likely be blamed for their condition, especially when they're adults. So, how to recognize a dangerous environment? It's quite simple, y'all. Are the people there willing to admit they don't have all the answers? It may sound unrelated, but think about it. If there are issues in a community, people have to admit they don't have all the answers. But that also means now, okay, we don't have all the answers, but we still have issues need to be addressed. We're not under obligation to look for answers and work on it. But people that don't want to look for the answers, they want to be devoted to the community well-being. They're narcissistic. Just want to think. They just want to get, but they don't want to contribute. People like that, they don't want to admit they don't have all the answers. They want to pretend like, oh, it's all arranged, or they want to come with excuses. So if you're in an environment where people in general have a hard time admitting they don't have all the answers, then you know that's a fucked up environment, y'all. Children, as well as grown folks, are at risk in that environment. Because if something goes wrong, the first thing people do is look away, act like they didn't see anything. And when they can't look away, they'll ask the police to intervene to deal with the disruption. They can continue escaping again. They want to escape the problem. Disrupted escape, drops dead. Now they want the police to deal with this so they can continue escape again. And when that is exposed, now they're going to act like, well, we never promised we're good people. We're not saints, we're not perfect. Now they're going to come with excuses, kind of excuse their neglect. Listen, if you're in an environment where people aren't willing to admit they don't have all the answers, that's an environment you need to watch out for. Even as a grown man or grown woman, you're at risk in such an environment, yo. Now, if you're around people or in an area where people admit they don't have all the answers, guess what? When something goes wrong, they're prone to admit something's wrong. We deal with it. But if you're in an environment, people want to act like they have all the answers, or they act like we know everything, or they act like we don't care about knowing anything. Us not being innocent means that doesn't matter. If around people like that, my God, you're in a danger zone. It's just a matter of time for you to become collateral damage. So understand this. Human predators operate in harmony with the public's neglect. Human predators operate in cooperation and collaboration with the local population. Now, not everyone knows about human predator, of course. Not everyone is in agreement, not everyone wants to comply, but overall, if the majority of the people in the area don't want to deal with stuff, that neglect is what the human predator will use to blackmail them and let them get away. And in 9 or 10 times it works. It takes a brave human being to call the cops or at least give anonymous tip to look into an individual. Why are children molested back to back to back over and over again in the world? Why do you keep having drug addicts, people with youth trauma, self-medicating with drugs and alcohol? Why? Because this is happening over and over again, y'all. A human predator will only go to a place where they're welcome. A human predator may not be celebrated by a population, but if he's able to do the dirty job for the people, they're gonna welcome him. A human predator will always go where he's welcome. Because listen, a human predator makes a lot of effort. A lot of effort. Stalking people, murdering people, covering up the bodies, or molesting the young ones over time, covering yourself. All that is a lot of toxic hard work, y'all. But the human predator is doing it because he knows he has backup. That's why. But nobody wants to talk about the backup. Well, I do now. So, you want to stop the molestation of children somewhere, the people have to say it's enough. We don't want it over here. You want to stop the romance scams, the people that say we can look after their own people sexually. If you want the predation, if you want, for example, sex trafficking to stop, the public has to agree we're going to become sexually healthy and stable as a population. We're going to devote ourselves to God's design. If that happens, sex trafficking will stop. As long as people are sexually escaping, there's going to be sex trafficking. All right. Are there any questions about this topic? Let me know in the live chat, please. Are there any questions about this topic? So understand this. The classical Hollywood image of a predator, where there's some man with a chainsaw in a mask ready to come after you, or where there is this old dude look for young little girls, all that are images that we associate with predation. And some images are correct in some cases. But just know, there are also a lot of women, young, good looking, sexy women who are molesting little boys in these schools. Anytime as in the past, you rarely read in the newspaper or in the news about uh, a female school teacher molesting a boy. It was quite rare. Now, over and over, you keep reading. Uh, One teacher here molest a boy, 12, raped him. You look at the female teacher, you think, what? That's a good-looking young woman, y'all. Wait, she was married? And the man is handsome too. You think, what? You think yourself, but this woman is good looking, sexy, young, married to a handsome man. So she has sexual access. She has a husband. Why can't she molest this boy? Because listen, predators are not healthy. So you can't compare healthy human behavior with them. They're sick by choice, seeking compensation for lack they deny on the inside. So anything is justified, just survive. That's how they think. It's psychological survival they operate in, y'all. Look, so yeah, there are young, good-looking women who shouldn't even have difficulty getting any man anywhere going for little boys. You think, lady, you can get almost any man you want. Older men, younger men. Why go after little boys? What the heck, lady? It's because these women are predators. It's all about control and sucking the life force out of the victims. That's why. If they would go out, if they would try to be predators on the grown men, it's going to be a big challenge. But a little boy, especially little boys who are neglected by the parents and the school system, oh my God, they have a free reign to go for it. A lot of them being arrested right now. Thank God they're arrested. Um, but the question still remains: how were they able to get away with it? Because the people allowed it. That's why the people allowed it. Some of you had predators all around you, but you were not aware of it. God didn't allow you to be aware of it because it would have creeped you out, you would have collapsed psychologically. But God brought you through it, y'all. Listen, predators can only operate in dangerous environment. So if you have people who are wasteful, I'm talking people who are mentally ill. If someone's mentally ill, they need help. But if someone is wasteful people are the ones giving opportunities um, and build outs to predators. Watch out for wasteful people, y'all. Watch out for them. Okay. Anyway, I didn't get any questions from you all. Pray about this message afterwards. Hope you took notes. You can listen, replay the live stream as much as you want to learn. Where this knowledge applies in your life, apply this knowledge to glorify Heavenly Father. For now, for those who are able to, please don't the links below. Thank you very much for your contribution.